Welcome to George MacDonald and Us. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year to all of you. We're back. We took a 2-month break, and I think we'll probably take every November and December off, I'm guessing. Like, we started a new precedence for this podcast by doing that. It's the holidays, and it's too much. So we're really happy to be back, though. And thank you to all of you, and hopefully you haven't given up on us yet after this 2-month break, and hopefully we can gain some new listeners with the new year. And we're at our kitchen table. Kids are down in bed. We've had a great weekend. It's been very warm this winter here in Minnesota. Sean's enjoying a pipe. I was gifted this White Boxer Coffee Company holiday blend for Christmas by a good friend. And I'm having that on ice right now with cream, and it is definitely my new favorite coffee. How about you, Sean? What are you enjoying tonight?
Yeah, tonight in the pipe, I'm enjoying a blend called, it's Sweet Burley by a company called the Country Squire. So one of the companies that I've heard of online, and first blend by them I've tried. It's supposed to be similar to what Katie's grandpa used to smoke commonly, Prince Albert blend. It's good. Yeah, I like a Burley blend, and it's very good. I'll be smoking this for a while. I did get quite a bit of it, so.
Good. And Merry Christmas. As of this recording, it is still the Christmas season here in our Roman Catholic calendar, so Merry Christmas to everyone. I do love this time of year. Well, yeah, George MacDonald is with us. Tonight we are going to be going down his Arthurian romance path. We are going to be reading for you his poem, The Sangreal, which I'm sure I'm offending diehard George MacDonaldians because I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. As our usual setup, we are going to read the poem for you, and then we'll have some time afterwards to discuss it. And you are welcome to join us as if you were just listening in on our conversation at our kitchen table tonight. The Sangreal by George MacDonald, a part of the story omitted in the old romances.
Part 1, How Sir Galahad despaired of finding the Grail.
Through the wood the sunny day glimmered sweetly glad. Through the wood his weary way rode Sir Galahad. All about stood open porch, long-drawn cloister dim. 'Twas a wavering, wandering church, every side of him. On through columns arching high, foliage vaulted, he rode in thirst that made him sigh, longing miserably. Came the moon, and through the trees glimmered faintly sad. Withered, worn, and ill at ease, down lay Galahad. Closed his eyes and took no heed what might come or pass, heard his hunger busy steed cropping dewy grass. Cool and juicy was the blade, good to him as wine. For his labor he was paid, Galahad must pine. Late had he at Arthur's board, Arthur strong and wise, pledged the cup with friendly lord, looked in lady's eyes. Now, alas, he wandered wide, resting nevermore, over lake and mountain side, over sea and shore. Swift in vision rose and fled all he might have had. Weary tossed his restless head, and his heart grew sad. With the lowliest in the land, he, a maiden fair, might have led with virgin hand from the altar stair. Youth away with strength would glide, age bring frost and woe. Through the world so dreary wide, mateless he must go. Lost was life and all its good, gone without avail. All his labor never would find the Holy Grail.
Chapter 2. How Sir Galahad Found and Lost the Grail.
Galahad was in the night, and the wood was drear, but to men in darksome plight radiant things appear. Wings he heard not floating by, heard no heavenly hail, but he started with a cry, for he saw the Grail. Hid from bright beholding sun, hid from moonlight wan, lo, from age-long darkness won, it was seen of man. 3 feet off, on cushioned moss, as if cast away, homely wood with carven cross, rough and rude it lay. To his knees the knight rose up, loosed his gauntlet band, fearing, daring toward the cup went his naked hand, when, as if it fled from harm, sank the holy thing, and his eager following arm plunged into a spring. Oh, the thirst, the water sweet, down he lay and quaffed and rose up on his feet, rose gaily and laughed. Fell upon his knees to thank, loved and lauded there, stretched him on the mossy bank, fell asleep in prayer. Dreamed and dreaming murmured low, Ave Pater Creed, when the fir tops 'gan to glow, waked and called his steed. Bitted him and drew his girth, watered from his helm. Happier knight, or better worth, was not in the realm. Belted on him then his sword, braced his slackened mail. Doubting said, I dreamed the Lord offered me the Grail.
Chapter 3. How Sir Galahad gave up the quest for the Grail.
Ere the sun had cast his light on the water's face, firm in saddle rode the knight from the holy place. Merry songs began to sing, let his matins bide. Rode a good hour pondering, and was turned aside, saying, I will henceforth then yield this hopeless quest. 'Tis a dream of holy men, this ideal best. Every good for miracle, heart devout may hold. Grail indeed, that farewell, full of water cold. Not my thirst alone it stilled, but my soul it stayed, and my heart with gladness filled, wept and laughed and prayed. Spectral church with cryptid niche, I will seek no more, that the holiest Grail is which helps the need most sore. And he spake with speech more true than his thought indeed, for not yet the good knight knew his own sorest need.
Chapter 4. How Sir Galahad sought yet again for the Grail.
On he rode to succor bound, but his faith grew dim. Wells for thirst he many found, water none for him. Nevermore from drinking deep rose he up and laughed. Nevermore did prayerful sleep follow on the draught. Good the water which they bore, plenteously fold, quenched his thirst, but no more eased his bosom's load. For the best no more he sighed, rode as in a trance. Life grew poor, undignified, and he spoke of chance. Then he dreamed through Jesus' hand that he drove a nail, woke and cried, through every land, Lord, I seek thy Grail.
Chapter 5. That Sir Galahad found the Grail.
Up the quest again he took, rode through wood and wave, sought in many a mossy nook, many a hermit cave, sought until the evening red sunk in shadow deep, sought until the moonlight fled, slept and sought in sleep. Where he wandered seeking sad, story doth not say, but at length Sir Galahad found it on a day. Took the Grail with holy hand, had the cup of joy, carried it about the land, gleesome as a boy, laid his sword where he had found, boot for every bale, stuck his spear into the ground, kept alone the Grail.
Chapter 6. How Sir Galahad carried about the Grail.
Horse and crested helmet gone, greaves and shield and mail, caroling loud the knight walked on, for he had the Grail. Caroling loud walked south and north, east and west for years. Where he went, the smiles came forth, where he left, the tears. Glaive nor dagger mourned he, axe nor iron flail, evil might not brook to see once the Holy Grail. Whiles he wandered with his staff, woods no longer sad, earth and sky and sea did laugh round Sir Galahad. Bitter mere nor trodden pool did in service fail, water all grew sweet and cool in the Holy Grail. Without where to lay his head, chanting loud he went, found every cave a palace bed, every rock a tent. Age that had begun to quail in the gathering gloom counseled he to seek the Grail and forget the tomb. Youth and hope or passion pale, youth with eager eyes, taught he that the Holy Grail was the only prize. Maiden worn with hidden ale, restless and unsure, taught he that the Holy Grail was the only cure. Children rosy in the sun ran to hear his tale, how 12 little ones had won, each of them the Grail.
Chapter 7. How Sir Galahad hid the Grail.
Very still was earth and sky when he passing lay. Oft he said he should not die, but would go away. When he passed, they reverence sought where his hand lay pressed. For the cup he bare, they thought, hidden in his breast. Hope and haste and eager thrill turned to sorrowing wail. Hid he held it deeper still, took with him the Grail.
Well, that's the first time we read this, actually, so I have to kind of soak it in here a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I don't know the King Arthur tales at all, and how it relates. What is Sir Galahad's character?
I love all things British and especially like, okay, I don't even know if King Arthur is Anglo-Saxon. I mean, I feel like it is, so I'm just going to say that that it is. But like, I love like old English things like Anglo-Saxon and Lord of the Rings and Beowulf and Old English. I've always wanted to learn Old English, and I always wanted to read the King Arthur story. And I went to, in high school for 2 weeks, Thomas Aquinas College in California. They do like this 2-week, it's not really a camp. It's like you get to pretend you're a student there, kind of like you take classes with their proctors and anyway, they have the most beautiful, magnificent, fun library there. And that's the first time I read King Arthur, and I can't remember who translated it. It was such a cool hardcover copy, and I did buy it. I mean, it's on our shelf. I'll find it and put it on the show notes, but I read it then. Now, this was like years ago because I was still in high school, and I guess I loved it, but I also just have that wonderful memory of reading it there in California and at Thomas Aquinas College, where I just fell in love with the great works and books and discussing them. Like, oh my gosh, the discussions we had. I loved it. So it's hazy to me. You know who? Have you ever seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
No.
That is what I and that is what I think of when I think of Sir Galahad. He has like my favorite line in that movie where they're at a castle and there's like some French soldiers yelling at them, and he's like, what a strange person. He's my favorite.
Well, it does say at the start, a part of the story omitted in the older romances, so maybe he's not a big character in the old one. I really have no idea.
Well, we'll have to read that book tonight or find his story and the King Arthur book that's on our shelf collecting dust. We did look up the word Sangreal, and it is an old French word, and it means Saint Grail or Holy Grail.
Makes sense.
And that's really cool. Right. So basically we have Sir Galahad, and he's looking for the Grail, and he's despairing, and he's riding around. I mean, it's kind of like he's on a hero's journey.
But he's all by himself the whole time, right?
It seems that way because...
It's almost like a personal journey.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I was reading it or listening to it.
So it's kind of like he promised King Arthur and the ladies of the court that he would find this Grail, it seems, but he's despairing because he's riding everywhere and he's getting weary with the journey. Sean and I have just started reading together Castle Warlock by George MacDonald. And in the version that we have, publishers inserted quotes from other authors about George MacDonald, and one of them is G.K. Chesterton. And he referred to George MacDonald as the St. Francis of Aberdeen. And I was kind of like wondering what that meant and what that was about. And I was just reading some things on the internet about it, but it seemed to be saying that George MacDonald was able to see the divine in the ordinary, or see the divinity of the cosmos, or how the divine is present in the cosmos, like the Chalcedonian understanding of creation and the cosmos. And I see that reflected in this poem because Sir Galahad is looking everywhere for the Grail, but he finds it at night, in wood, in moss. You know, it says it's hidden 3 feet off on cushioned moss, as if cast away, homely wood, with carven cross, rough and rude it lay. Yeah, wait, now does the thing like run away from him?
Well, it's a dream, isn't it? Because at the end of that chapter, he says, doubting said, I dreamed the Lord offered me the Grail. I think he was dreaming that whole sequence. And then once he awoke from the dream, the next chapter is how he gave up the quest, and then he's basically said he's done.
In the dream, the water that I drank from the Grail was enough. And so it's almost like he's saying he's happy with like the spirit of the Grail.
You think that's what he's saying?
Oh yeah, because it's like in my dream, it didn't just quench my thirst, but it quieted my soul. And like, this is a really important line. It says, spectral church with cryptic niche, I will seek no more. That the holiest Grail is, which helps the need most sore. And he says, and he spake with speech more true than his thought indeed. For not yet the good knight knew his own sorest need. So it's almost like Sir Galahad wants to be content with this dream, and that like, oh, the Grail is just like an idea or a symbol of something that I need. And because I dreamt it and because I have like the spirit of the symbol of it, I am fine now. Because his heart is glad, and he's weeping and laughing and praying, and he's saying, I'm not going to look for a physical grail. I'm not going to look in churches or in crypts. I'm okay with this. But then George MacDonald was like, oh, but he doesn't even know his deepest desire yet.
Mm-hmm. And then it goes to chapter 4, which is how he sought yet again for the Grail, which is fun, I think.
Well, it seems that after this, like, he can't quench his thirst.
Yeah, his faith grew dim.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's writing, like, because he's not searching for the best anymore, he's writing as in a trance. Life grew poor, undignified, and he spoke of chance. Interesting. Then he dreamed through Jesus' hand that he drove a nail. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to look for the Grail again.
Yeah. It's another dream that snaps him out of it again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
In dreaming that he drove the nail through Christ.
Oh, okay. I get it now.
That startled him so much that then he's renewed to seek the Grail again. And then he took up the quest again. But it says this, where he wandered, seeking sad, story doth not say. The story doesn't say where he wandered.
Right. He went everywhere. Yeah.
Found it on a day. And it's kind of lackluster. He just found it.
Yeah.
And he just, all of a sudden he found it and took the Grail with his holy hand.
And then he sheds his sword and his spear, and the only thing he has now is the Grail. And he's singing, he's caroling.
Yeah, now that he has we're going into chapter 6, how Sir Galahad carried about the Grail. Caroling, walking east and west and north and south.
So I feel like he starts out in despair, and then he has a dream, and he's happy with like the ideal, and then the ideal no longer is a good substitute for him. And when he finally does find the Grail, he's casting aside his weapons whilst he wandered with his staff. When I think about a staff, I think about a wise wizard, or like a wise old man, or like he's past his youth, and there's a sense that like finding the Grail has aged him, but made him
so?
I do. Made him grow in wisdom. Well, since we're in this part of the story, or in this part of the poem, this part was so powerful to me as a woman. It says, maiden worn with hidden ale, restless and unsure, taught he that the Holy Grail was the only cure. And I love that hidden ale. You know, an illness that doctors can't diagnose, or I think about a lot of these illnesses that aren't contagious that women have, that just really wear us down. And restless and unsure, I mean, boy, that could describe me a lot of the time, you know, restless and unsure. And when I think about the Holy Grail, I do think it is the union of the feminine and the masculine, because what is the Holy Grail? Well, it's a cup, I believe, right? Yeah, like a bowl.
Yeah.
That is a very feminine shape, but it is filled with Christ's blood, which is like masculine. You know, like blood, we typically think of being a masculine thing. At least I believe that's a Jungian thing. And obviously it is Christ's blood, so like the ultimate man. And
But in this story, it's only water.
but the fact that the Grail held Christ's blood, I think, like that's what makes it the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Is that at one point it did have Christ's blood within it. And when I think about like, you know, Jungian's approach to this, like Jung was fascinated by the ancient mind, and he believed that illnesses that didn't have a source in like contagion or like viruses or bacteria stemmed from an illness within the psyche or within the soul. And I think so many illnesses of this nature can be traced to a splitting of the person. And for women, I think a big one is when a woman doesn't have her masculine integrated in a healthy way, she can start to get symptoms. And I believe that is true. I guess as I'm reading this line about women worn with illnesses that are mysterious, they're hidden, they're restless, we're unsure, like we don't have, like this is a symptom of a woman without an ordering masculine principle, without the divine king within her. And Galahad is giving them the Grail, and that is the only cure. The chalice containing that touched the divine blood of Christ. I mean, that's a very powerful, I almost wonder if that's kind of like our icon of the harrowing of Hades, where Christ is like integrating femininity and masculinity into himself. I mean, that's definitely a powerful image of the two together. And so I really love that line.
Yeah, that's
by George
cool.
MacDonald, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next section of the poem there is, I'm wondering what he's talking about, where it is, children rosy in the sun ran to hear his tale, how 12 little ones had won, each of them the Grail. What does that mean? Is that the disciples?
Well, I wonder, because I mean, I feel like, look, as a Roman Catholic, I'm reading like, oh yeah, that's like how the 12 apostles were the first bishops and like gave us the Eucharist, you know, or like by their ordaining priests, we now have access to the Eucharist and to the Grail, like at every Mass. And so I don't think that's what George MacDonald means by that, but that is how I, as a Roman Catholic, read it. So I don't know.
Because I think the Grail, in this story, I don't think the Grail is anything physical.
But I think it is, because it's not just an idea.
I think but it's not anything physical. It's not an actual cup.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. What does it say at the end?
That was Sir Galahad's problem.
But read, okay. Read the last part. How Sir Galahad hid the Grail. Very still was earth and sky when he passing lay. Oft he said he should not die, would but go away. When he passed, thy reverence sought, where his hand lay pressed. For the cup he bare, they thought, hidden in his breast. Hope and haste and eager thrill turned to sorrowing wail. Hid he held it deeper still, took with him the Grail. He didn't have it.
Oh, but he did.
He didn't have anything physical.
Yes,
That's
he
why
did.
they were. Why else are they sorrowing and wailing that they couldn't find it?
Because he did take it.
It was
with them.
inside of him. Is what he's saying. He found something inside of him. He found the faith. Okay. He didn't find anything physically.
But Sean, no. That is why he is despairing, because he thinks he doesn't.
He's not despairing. This is everybody else. This is after he passed.
But I'm thinking about no.
Right?
Let's go back to stanza or section, whatever. Okay.
We can't go back. We're talking about that section.
Because he thinks that it's an idea.
All right, what are you referencing there?
I'm referencing this whole chunk of the poem where he dreams about it and he's like, okay, like I'm not going to search for a physical grail anymore because I dreamed about it and it's an idea and I had it. And so I'm good because it's just an idea that, yeah, I dreamed about. So it is a physical
But he goes
grail.
and looks for it again.
Yes, exactly. Because dreaming about it and thinking of it as a symbol wasn't enough.
I don't think so.
I think so. I think that's what that whole part is about.
I don't think so.
Okay, what is
he dreamt about it.
Yeah.
That he found it. That the Lord gave it to him, basically. And then he realized that it was a dream. And then he said, I'm not going to go looking for it again. It's just a dream of holy men. And then he has the next dream that he was driving the nail through Christ's hand. And then he says he's taking up the quest again. So it's that dream that triggers that he's going for it again. It wasn't anything else that triggered it. It was that dream. And then he's looking everywhere for it frantically until into the night, not sleeping. And then it says he found it on a day. And he took the Grail with his holy hand, had the cup of joy, carried it about the land, gleesome as a boy. I don't think that's meant to say he physically found a cup. I think there's a reason why George MacDonald, like it was in the beginning where he's getting it in the dream, it's very physically, he's getting it from the moss or whatever covered, and he's taking it and he actually takes a drink. This is not like that at all. It just says he found it, and he's carrying it with him then, gleesome as a boy. And he leaves everything else behind.
Well, it does say he took it in this one.
It says he took it.
Yeah.
Took the Grail with his holy hand.
Yeah.
Had the cup of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's figurative. That's not meant to say he physically had it in his hand. That's my interpretation of it. Because it doesn't talk about what it looked like or anything. It doesn't say he was carrying it anywhere any other time. And at the end, they look for it and they can't find it. Because they thought he had it somewhere in his breast.
Well, I can see how the fact that it disappears in the end.
He found, I think what George MacDonald is saying here is he found humility and he became like a child. He didn't need anything else. He became like a child, like the 12 little ones.
Yes. No, he definitely becomes like a child. Yes.
That was the Holy Grail. That's the Grail.
Yeah.
Becoming a child.
Yes. I can definitely see that. I would be tempted to think that had it not been for this whole bit about him thinking that dreaming of it was enough and he doesn't need to look for it anymore because he dreamt it. And
well, I think you're misinterpreting that. Well, maybe not. Okay, go back. I don't know if it ever said that was enough.
Because he's happy. I mean, he's singing happy songs. He's saying like, hey, I dreamed the Lord offered me the Grail and I'm happy about that. And I'm not gonna do this anymore because this is just an ideal.
See, I think, okay, and this is what I think now. He was searching for something physical at the beginning. And then after that other dream, he figured it out. It wasn't something physical he was looking for anymore. And then he found it.
Exactly. He finds it though because he realizes that it is a physical thing that he needs to go find. Because
No, I think it's the opposite. He was thinking it was something physical before, and that's when he had the dream. He thought it physically was given it from the Lord. And then he
and then he's
realized
happy about that. But
he realized it wasn't actually it.
okay.
The Lord wasn't the Lord wouldn't just give him something physical. That wasn't enough.
Like he thought it fulfilled all of his needs, but he didn't know his sorest need. That's really interesting.
And that's where I think, I think he's thinking physically he found it.
Yeah. Okay, so like for the best. I mean, George MacDonald sometimes calls the Holy Grail the best. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think it means that she's becoming a child. That's a common theme with George MacDonald.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. But Sean, I mean, if he's not looking for a tangible thing, then why is he writing after his awakening, after he's dreaming about driving the nail through the Lord's hand? Why is he writing through wood and wave and looking in these?
It's all figurative.
It doesn't denote the fact that Galahad in this story is looking for a physical grail and finds a physical grail. And yes, it is a mystery why it disappears in the end.
It's not physical. That's why. That's the only thing that makes sense.
No, it is a physical thing.
He can still carry it around with him because it's not a physical thing.
Sean,
He's got it inside of him.
Well, look, I mean, you could be right, Sean.
I'm right. I know I'm right.
Listeners, please write to us and tell us which you think it is. Is it a physical grail? Or is it not a physical grail in the end? Like what Sir Galahad ultimately finds.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Is it physical or is it symbolic?
I'm just not seeing any evidence of it being physical. It's not described once.
I don't know what taking it by his hand means to you. Like he finds it. He's looking in all these physical places and he physically finds it and physically takes it and physically carries it around.
Well, he didn't physically take it though.
Yes, he does.
He saw it.
He takes
and he
it
was
with
grabbing.
his hand.
No, he was going for it with his hand, but then it disappeared.
No, I'm talking about when he actually finds it. When he actually
finds it. Okay,
yes.
What does it say? Saw it yet again. He found it.
Took the Grail with holy hand.
With holy hand.
Oh my gosh.
With holy hand. That to me, that is a figurative thing.
All right.
That holy is a key word in there.
Well, what does holy mean to you? Does it mean
Well, he could have said
woo-woo?
it, took it with his withered hand. Like that would I have said physically, yes, he was grabbing it.
So you're
his
saying,
holy hand.
So you're saying holy
and
can't be something physical?
Joy. It's a cup of joy.
And that's
how he describes it.
So you're saying that holy means not physical?
I think it lends to more of a not physical thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that's the whole point of this poem. Physical things are holy. And like, he is the saint.
I think that's so far from the point of the story. I do.
He's the Saint Francis of Aberdeen. Like, you can't just be in the woo-woo and think of things purely as like, oh, I had a dream about it and now all of my needs are fulfilled and
but it wouldn't make sense the way George MacDonald describes it. After he finds it, he's so happy. He gives away everything.
Yeah.
Caves are palaces. Rocks are tents.
Yeah.
Why would he say like all those physical things now don't matter? But this Grail is the one physical thing that he needs.
That's the opposite. They do matter so much that caves are now palaces. Like these humble physical caves, because they are physical, because they're real, are palaces. And where is that?
The point is, like, his whole mindset has changed. He doesn't need a palace anymore. A cave is good enough for him. a rock is good enough. He doesn't need a tent anymore. Like he's done with his physical possessions. He put his sword down. He put his boots down.
Yeah.
He's getting rid of everything physical because he's found the one thing that he needs, and it's not a physical thing.
Yes, it is.
He's been thinking he needs all these physical things.
No, his mistake was thinking that it wasn't physical, and that led him to despair.
I totally disagree with that. I just disagree with that. This one's going to be tough to edit. To me, it's just the last thing that George MacDonald, his point, is not that it would be something physical. All his things are about the poor and the rich, and it doesn't make sense to me that would be the...
When you say it's classic George MacDonald, what do you mean by that?
He's leading you to believe that it is something physical, but he's always doing that. Like, it's not what you think. He purposely does that. It's like you think, you're looking for something physical, but...
Yeah, so it's like he keeps looking for it in wells.
He keeps thinking it's something physical, even though the point that everything is leading him to not, that it's not. And finally he gets it.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe it is like every good thing that you find is like a grail. Every good thing that helps you is like a holy grail.
Yeah, he's thinking about it. Like he's wondering, why is it that is like a grail full of cold water, but not my thirst alone, but my soul. He's contemplating why. And he spake with speech more true than his thought. Indeed, like what he's saying is true, but he's not actually thinking it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. So the fact, okay, Sean. So I think you're right.
And then he's finding all these wells for thirst.
I think the fact that he's continuing to ride on.
It's everybody's journey. Everybody keeps looking, even though they know that they shouldn't be looking for something.
Yes, because, I think you're onto something, Sean, or I think I'm starting to see it through your eyes, because he's still looking for it from without. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
He's still searching for it. He's getting closer and closer, but he still just doesn't connect the dot until finally he does.
Yeah, it's still not within him.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at through these things that I think the well does represent, which is...
The well does, yes.
These things that we find from without of ourselves that give us inner peace. Yeah, that the holiest grail is, which helps the need most sore. So he's like, I'm not going to look for it in churches or in riddles, because the Holy Grail is whatever helps us in our sorest need.
He's getting close. He's figured it out, that he can't find it in a church. He's figured it out. He can't physically find it.
Yeah.
That's where he's figuring it out.
So, so it's almost like at this part of the journey when he's riding on and his faith is growing dim, it's like he's looking it for places, and the fact that it's not there where he thinks it is causing him to go into like a depression.
It could be, yeah.
It's almost like, as I'm thinking about this, there's this really great quote from Jungian analyst Marion Woodman. I've talked about her before, Marion Woodman, but she wrote this really great memoir called Bone, Dying into Life, which is about her journey with uterine cancer, and it's a really powerful read, and I picked it up when I had my own surgery after giving birth to our fourth and last baby, and I just felt like I had never been so close to death before, and this book was just a really good companion on my journey, I guess, and sort of processing what happened. And one thing that she quotes William Blake in it, and William Blake said, "He who binds to himself a joy doth the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise." And so when I think about Galahad, like thinking that he has solved the mystery of the Grail, and he is like almost like binding it to every well or every like thing that helps the need most sore, or he's almost like turning it into like I don't know, like a logical solution, or it's like, well, because I had a dream that I took a drink of this water that had the Grail in it, now I have solved the mystery of the Grail, and now whenever I seek it in this particular way, in this particular place, it's almost like he's binding it down, but in doing so, he's destroying it. And, I'm thinking about the line in Blake, "But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise." And yeah, I mean, there is this sense of letting go in the poem, like you said, Sean. He's not binding anything to himself anymore.
No, he's horse and crest and helmet gone. Everything's gone. But he went caroling loudly on. And yeah, then he didn't grieve any of those things. Yeah, I like that line too, where it says, "Glaive nor dagger mourned he, axe nor iron flail. Evil might not brook to see once the Holy Grail." So like he's not even a knight anymore physically, but evil won't even once want to look at him.
Interesting. But he has a staff, and I guess I'm going back to me that means like a wizard or somebody.
Yeah,
who's
wisdom.
wise.
No, he's very wise. Yeah.
It says water all grew sweet and cool in the Holy Grail. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like that's interesting though, because it's almost like in the beginning he was looking for the Holy Grail in the water. But in this case, the Holy Grail contains the water. It's almost like he thought the water contained the Holy Grail before, his conversion, let's call it, where he has the dream of, but it's almost like he's mistaking the creature for the creator. It's almost like he's mistaking water for the Grail.
I don't get that sense myself, I guess, but
because it says, "For the best no more he sighed. Life grew poor and dignified, and he spake of chance." So I think there is this union of the physical and the divine, but you can't mistake the creature for the creator. You can't mistake the water for the Grail. Because water itself won't fully quench your thirst. He's mistaking the water for the Grail. I don't know how else to say it, but once he has the Grail, then it is the Grail that elevates every water. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a pool or a mere, which is a body of water. It doesn't matter how icky the water is. It's like, it's not the water, it's the Grail. But But when he has the Grail, like that transforms all created things, including water.
I don't know if it transforms then.
Well, water all grew sweet and cool in the Holy Grail.
Yeah, but it didn't transform the water. It transformed him. Because what he's found now has nothing to do with the water.
Right. Yes, you're right.
But water is a figurative thing.
Yeah. And I think that this is the Francis of Aberdeen, though. I think this is a very Saint Francis of Assisi story or part. I mean, Saint Francis of Assisi was called the Holy Fool. He saw the world as hanging upside down. Totally everything is of God and from God. And
yeah, he's
I think,
kind of seeing that.
Yeah, like every cave is a palace bed. I mean, I think about how Saint Francis of Assisi like resurrects that church that was fallen down. I mean, he definitely reminds me of a monk. This Sir Galahad, like he's chanting. I think about Saint Francis of Assisi, his canticle, Brother, Sun, and Sister Moon. And I think like the Grail must still mean Christ, though.
Yes, I think so.
I mean, the ending is mysterious. It's a hard ending.
But it also makes sense.
You know what? It kind of reminds me of in the Brothers Karamazov when Brother Zosima, who's this like super holy monk, and he's like, everybody thinks he does miracles, and like they think his body's gonna be incorrupt when he dies, and like everybody is anticipating a miracle. And when he dies, his body begins to decay like faster than normal bodies, and all of a sudden, like people who thought Father Zosima was like a saint are now saying he was like evil. And that this part kind of reminds me of that. And what is that? I mean, why did Dostoevsky have this very holy priest monk, and I think he was based on a real monk who like helped Dostoevsky return to orthodoxy or return to God, and it was like I think I heard this once that he based Father Zosima on an actual Orthodox monk that was very powerful in his life. And Brothers Karamazov is just such a story about what it means to be human and divine, like the incarnation. And why would he have that monk rot so fast? These people who wanted to find the Grail hidden in Sir Galahad's breast, and they're like so excited, and they're seeking him reverently, and they're so excited, but like because of that thrill or their excitements when they don't find it, or when it's like all they find is a dead body, they just turn to sorrowing wail. And it's like the Grail is gone, and I just feel like, I don't know, there's like just echoes of that same thing in the Brothers Karamazov.
I could see that.
But why is that?
Well, I think in this story, it's just because, like George MacDonald is saying, he didn't have a grail, like a physical grail. It wasn't something that you were going to find. Like, they need to know that. That's something that they can find, but it's not like he had this magic grail that made him that way. It was all inside of him.
Yeah, he took with him the Grail.
Yeah, he took it with him.
He held it deep.
I'm like, if they, like, it has to be that way, otherwise they're gonna fall in the same trap that he did of being looking for something physical.
Now, what does it mean though that he should not die but go away? I mean,
That's what he said. Often he said he should not die, would but go away. He's probably saying that he'll go to heaven, he's not going to actually die, but he's going to go away. He's just going to go to heaven. He was so sure of his faith, Well, it's probably a pretty good place to
there's just
wrap it up.
Well, this was a really fun poem
It is really good
to talk about, and I just want to say I feel like there were echoes of some Anglo-Saxon poetry in here, where the Grail is described as rough and rude. I almost feel like he's playing on the Anglo-Saxon poem, The Dream of the Rood. I wonder if we might find echoes of these themes in this Anglo-Saxon poem, The Dream of the Rood, because we're dealing with a dream, just like what Sir Galahad had in here, and that little play on words. Because in George MacDonald's poem, rude is R-U-D-E, rough and rude it lay. But I mean, in the poem, it's R-O-O-D, Dream of the Rood. And rood is from the Old English word for pole, or more specifically, crucifix. So, listeners, this is Sean's and mine homework. We're going to read The Dream of the Rood after we sign off here and see if we can't find some similarities and some answers here, and maybe understand a little bit more where George MacDonald was coming from. And the reason Anglo-Saxon poetry is on my mind, I will also say too, is because I'm reading this fascinating book. It's called Winters in the World, A Journey Through the Anglo-Saxon Year. It's by Eleanor Parker, and it is on Audible for people who like to listen to things. If you're listening to this podcast, I assume you might like to listen, maybe more than read. So it is on Audible. Check it out. I'll just read a quick synopsis here. Winters in the World is a beautifully observed journey through the cycle of the year in Anglo-Saxon England, exploring the festivals, customs, and traditions linked to the different seasons. Drawing on a wide variety of source material, including poetry, histories, and religious literature, Eleanor Parker investigates how Anglo-Saxons felt about the annual passing of the seasons and the profound relationship they saw between human life and the rhythms of nature. Many of the festivals celebrated in the United Kingdom today have their roots in the Anglo-Saxon period, and this book traces their surprising history while unearthing traditions now long forgotten. It celebrates some of the finest treasures of medieval literature and provides an imaginative connection to the Anglo-Saxon world. And I tell you, people, it is just fantastic. I've learned so much more about my history. I have roots in the United Kingdom, and it really, Ireland, Scotland. I don't think I'm Welsh. It's just been so cool to learn about my history. And well, thank you everybody for listening, and we hope you will join us again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night. Bye-bye.